Oh, shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. Shalom, all of you millions of people in between. This is your old pal, Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches. And we are here with a brand new live episode of the Dave's Gone By Facebook, your podcast, your programmio of the stream on this Saturday morning. I know it's Shabbos. I'm not that kind of a rabbi. I can get away with these things because I have a direct communication with Hashem. And I asked Hashem this week, I said, Hashem, because we're like that, we're buddies like that. Hashem, we need a guest for this episode of Dave's Gone By. We can't find anyone. We want to have somebody fun, who's somebody interesting, who's had a whole big background, and somebody funny. We all need to laugh. We all need to get over this COVID stuff. So who can I get? And wouldn't you know that TED GREENBERG showed up in my mind in a flash, like a burning bush, which is, if you have that, women go to a gynecologist. But TED GREENBERG, he has been doing his off-Broadway show called The Complete Performer at the Soho Playhouse for more than a decade. It's been there. He was also, prior to this, a writer for the David Letterman late night show way back in the early years when the show was even greater than it was later on. So we thought, hey, let's have TED GREENBERG on the program. And he is, and he will be. And we're going to get him on the show as we play Dave's opening music.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. There goes the neighborhood. And there was much rejoicing.
Didn't your meds kick in yet?
We got Dave Lefkowitz here. He's a Long Island arts guy. He's got his own radio show.
I want you all to really enjoy a wonderful program done by a fine artist.
A glorious thing of unparalleled beauty.
Dave's Gone By. Dave is one of my very favorite broadcasters, so keep on listening to Mr. Dave.
Oh, shalom again, my friends. As I said, this is Rabbi Sol Solomon from Temple Sons of Bitches talking to you live on this Shabbos. It is May 16th, 2020, and we are here with the 746th episode of the Dave's Gone By program. Dave is waiting in the wings. He's going to take over the show later on. But I begged, I implored, I pleaded even to do the interview that we have happening right this second live with someone from his last name, I assume to be Jewish. His name is TED GREENBERG. Ted, you're right there. I think we all see you. Let's see if we can hear you. Shalom, Ted, you there?
Shalom, I'm here and I am Jewish.
He is Jewish. Oh, good. I wanted to stop the interview after 30 seconds. So you passed the test. This is exciting. And Ted is a writer, performer. As a matter of fact, he wrote for the David Letterman show back in the days when it was not only, it was always great, but when it was even greater than great because it was weird and strange and trying every possible thing. And among the things that this man had David Letterman try was the Velcro suit. Everybody remembers this. And check this out. There was the Larry Bud Melman singles ski weekend. If there's ever a greater idea than that, I can't even think of one. And then years after this, he finds a little kind of an off-Broadway theater downtown, the Soho Playhouse. As a matter of fact, we had the proprietor of the Soho Playhouse on Van Dam Street on this program just a couple of months ago. His show, TED GREENBERG's show, was called The Complete Performer. And it's hard to describe. It's a mix of stand-up comedy and improv and audience participation and weirdness and props and gossip. It's a really interesting thing called The Complete Performer that has been going on now, except it's not going on right now because nothing is going on right now, for about 12 years. But ladies and gentlemen, won't you please welcome, after this incredibly long introduction, TED GREENBERG. Shalom, Ted.
Thanks, Rabbi. I'm very impressed by your research. That was
Thank you. And I did tons of Googling for this. Oh my God. You know, back in the day, I would have gone to like the NYU Elmer Holmes Boast Library. Hours and using microfiche to find these things about you. But no, it's like Google, TED Greenberg. Boom, it was there. But
thanks.
You're welcome.
I was kicked out of that, Rabbi. Out of that library. It was a fantastic library, the Boast.
Why were you kicked out of Boast Lab? Was this when you were a Wall Street guy or when?
Yeah, it was when I thought I had a fake. I thought I had a good NYU ID because I'd gone to summer school there 10 years earlier, but it didn't pass muster and they kicked me out of Boast Library. That's the only time I've ever been kicked out of anything.
Well, wait, it wasn't a fake ID. It was the ID.
Well, it was sort of a fake ID. I mean, it was a summer school ID from 10 years earlier.
Oh, okay. Because Dave, the guy who runs this, he's an alumnus.
Yeah.
Or alumnuch, as Jewish people would say, of NYU. And so he's still hoping that library card will get him in if the library ever reopens.
Yeah.
But we mentioned you were, let's see, at one point. So let me get the timeline straight. Because at one point, this Wall Street stuff, and another point, you're also like an epidemiologist, and I can't even say the word, let alone know what it is. And then you're also, so what the hell is your timeline? Tell us.
The general timeline is when I got out of college, I wanted to be a comedy writer, and I wrote for Letterman, and then I did a TV pilot with my best friend, and I wrote some plays.
Stop. This is I'm not talking about like a little. When you say, I wrote for Letterman, this is 10 minutes worth of material right here. So you gotta.
I was my partner and I were among the early writers for Letterman in '83 and '84, and I don't want to exaggerate my role. I was only there for like 6 or 8 months, but as you point out, it was a very formative time in the show when he was willing to try anything, and it was a fantastic time for like a young writer to be on a show because it was so daring, and he knew what he wanted, but within a very wide range, he would try anything and entertain any idea. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, in recent bios of him, a lot of that supposedly was more Merrill Markoe. Even then, I mean, he would sign off, but it was her.
You're so right. She was so influential. He'd had that morning show that didn't really work. And she was convinced that his strong suit was getting out of the chair and moving around in and out of the studio. And she was 100% right. And in that spirit, sort of a Steve Allen spirit of try anything, he totally bought into that and did not want to suffer the same fate as his morning show. So was really open to taking risks. And Merrill Markoe was huge behind that. I mean, she really is the unsung hero of his early years. And I guess she's not so unsung anymore.
I think it was Ned Kastroff wrote a book about the whole period of it's his book. And
that's right.
Clear, yeah. So let me ask you this. So like I would still give my left nut to have a writer for David Letterman at any period. Not my right nut, because I'm quite attached to that one, but my left I would have given to write for the Letterman show. How did you and your partner, how did you even get the gig?
I knew a producer there who put our submissions on the top of the list. And they had an exodus of like their entire writing staff left for the new Lorne Michaels show. So they were desperate for writers.
Wow.
And so it was lucky. So my partner and I spent a weekend coming up with 100 ideas, just like bullet point ideas, sort of conceptual ideas, like Dave wearing a Velcro suit on a trampoline.
That was something you came up with as an audition to get into the show.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and they got like 20, there were 20 show-worthy ideas in that submission. So from their attitude, it was worth a 3-month investment. Like, they were at least going to get their 3 months worth from us.
But you guys were there, how long did you say, like 9 months? How long?
I was there like 7 months, and Yaz was there for like a year and a half.
Well, you mentioned your friend, quote unquote, Yaz, another friend of the neighborhood. We're talking about the composer, the guy who wrote the band, is it? And oh my God, what's Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, David Yaz.
And Full Monty, yeah.
Full Monty, that's the one. So when you say,
and he's working on The Princess Bride right now.
Wow. So are you still friends? Are you still buddies?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, McMuscle. So you both got on the show.
And David's mother is Jewish, so he's Jewish.
Yeah, well, yes, we know. That's right. That's why he made the Jews and the Arabs look good in the band's visit. Because if he were a real left-wing Jew, he'd make the Jews look terrible and the Arabs wonderful. And
yeah.
Right-wing Jew, the Arabs would be all terrorists. But you can tell he's sort of in the middle there.
As you're talking, I don't think I've ever met anybody who's more astute in the combination of culture, of pop culture, and Judaism. You really have a great niche.
Oh, thank you. So Abba Ebang has nothing on me. Let me tell you that. Thank you so much. By the way, what is your TED, right? So what is your Hebrew name?
Theodore.
Oh.
Yeah, Theodore.
Theodore. Now that's not what they call you in shul when they call you up to the
I'm embarrassed to say that I don't know that I was ever given a Hebrew name. I'm so sorry.
Oh my God.
We were very Jewish, but in a secular way. We were very Jewish in our heritage and in our gratitude, in sort of the Exodus spirit of gratitude, but we weren't really observant.
Oh.
I wasn't bar mitzvahed. My dad wasn't bar mitzvahed.
You weren't even bar mitzvahed? Oh,
no.
Oh, that's horrible. Are you circumcised?
I believe I am, yes.
You would know. You would know. I mean, is the Oscar Mayer winger, does it have the skin on, or is it what? You would know. It's easy.
Now that you press me on it, I concede I was.
I'm not going to press you on it. That'd be horrible. No, if you've never had a check for smegma, you've had the operation done. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Where the hell was I? So we're talking about So do you remember any of the other bullet point ideas that got through that you did?
Yeah, there was like Parents' Day for the crew. There was something called wow, you're really putting me to it. There was Dave's red wig, which was just there was a wig on a pedestal under glass on stage the entire show, and it was billboarded the entire show, Dave's red wig, and finally he puts the wig on at the end of the show. I mean, there was just a lot of goofy stuff like that. Audience cable show where audience members were given their own public access cable show, and so guests from Dave's show were shuttled to the public access studio. So I think like Dr. Ruth got into a cab, like left Dave's show, got into a cab, went to the public access show, and Dave is watching the public access show on his desk.
This is brilliant. This is wonderful stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was really. That was a really sweet thing. There were a bunch of others, but all in that sort of goofy, rollicking spirit.
Now, I don't want. Well, I'm a Jew, so of course I'm going to go negative on this. But
yeah,
in terms of, you were there 7 months, right?
Yeah.
Why, I imagine you did not just say, "Oh, I quit."
I did. I did because I was crazy. I didn't realize how good I had it. I was sort of anxious in the job in the first place. It was really hard. And I had it in my head that I didn't want to do disposable work, that I wanted to write plays. It was sort of like this Barton Fink thinking where like I'm too good for TV. I was 23. I was an idiot.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, no, I'm sorry. You were.
I was. I was an idiot. Yeah.
I mean, you could write plays on your weekends. I mean, but let me also ask.
You know, I mean, the thing about the show, Rabbi, is that like at the time there were like 8 writers, and it was really hard. And it's not like, I mean, it was a 10-hour-a-day job. You know, it was a 6-day, 10-hour-a-day at least. You know, and like and every third day, Dave wouldn't like the next show, and you would have to stay in the office till 11 at night. I mean, it was really hard work. And I mean, that it was a new show had benefits in that he would take risks. However, it wasn't the machine that most shows become, that, you know, and they become sort of like reasonable office jobs after a while. But in the first 2 years, it's like everyone's pulling their hair out to stay alive. And that was a lot of stress for my temperament at age 23.
Well, speaking of temperament, did you ever witness any Letterman meltdowns? Did he break things? I mean, this is apparent.
You know, it was the point in the show where he was insulated by the head writer, Steve O'Donnell. So it was only like once every couple of weeks where you'd be in a meeting with him. So his meltdowns, his so-called meltdowns, were not in front of writers.
Oh, that's okay. That's good. That's
yeah, he was sort of sealed in his office.
And did you have any nice interactions, fun interactions with him in the 6-7 months that, you know?
I mean, you know, like he was pleasant enough in the hallways, but it really was kind of that Larry Sanders thing where he like the last thing he'd want is to be trapped in an elevator with a writer. You know, like what the hell was he going to talk about? You know, and like I think I knew enough about sports, so it wouldn't have been awkward for either of us. But it was.
I gotcha. I know.
Yeah.
So let me. Now you're 24 years old. You have the Letterman show with some good money in your pocket, but not enough to last for a decade. What did you do next?
I went to Europe with my best friend from college, and I hung out there for 6 months. I studied Italian in Perugia, Italy. Went to the language school there. You know, like that's what I did with the money.
Can I ask you, did you come from money? Were your parents and well off, as it were?
Yes. My father hit it big when I was 7, and I knew that I wouldn't have to worry about like medical stuff. But he was pretty strict about money when we were growing up.
Right. Okay. Well, he hit it big. What? Was he a
On
bootlegger?
Wall Street. Yeah.
Law. Okay, got it. That's it. So you knew, like a lot of nice Jewish middle-class people, that I can fly a little bit, and I'll always have a place to come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was always a very high safety net.
So you come out of Italy speaking bare Italian, and
then I start to write plays, and I drive a cab on weekends, and that's how I pay my rent. And that lasted for a bunch of, and then my best friend and I wrote a TV pilot that was almost picked up.
Oh, can I ask, what was the show? Who was in it?
It was called Bowling for Horror, and it was a movie wraparound show, kind of like Mystery Science Theater 2000.
Uh-huh.
And we had Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray's brother, and an actor named Edson. What's his name? Richard Edson. You would recognize him because he'd been in a lot of movies at the time.
Is he Jewish?
He's not.
I wouldn't recognize him. Okay.
And then so then I got sort of angry at not having plays produced, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to make a lot of money. And
and you went to Wall Street, became a stockbroker.
Yeah, I became a trader, and I did that for roughly 10 years. And then
wait, stop.
Yeah.
Was it a horrible? Did you hate it, or did you actually really get it? Did you get on the adrenaline and love it?
When it was easy, and it was easy the first 3 or 4 years, I loved it, and then my business dried up, and it became a grind, and then I hated it. So it was like a lot of things.
Well, it dried up. Was there a recession in that point, or why?
Well, I did a specific thing called deal arbitrage, which I don't know if you remember the late 80s and early 90s, but there were a lot of these gigantic deals like RJ Reynolds got sold and Pillsbury got sold. And so there was a lot of money to be made in the late 80s and early 90s. And then that business dried up, like the sort of frothiness dried up when Drexel Burnham went under and financing got harder. So then it became a grind for the next 4 or 5 years. And then what happened was my mom jumped out of a window, killed herself. And I became very interested in suicide prevention. And that coincided with the winding down of my business anyway. So
not to make a joke, I will. It's usually the stockbroker who jumps out the window. No, but had she been mentally ill all through or something? What?
Yeah. She had, but it was sort of concealed. And it was not something that I was really attuned to. But yeah, she was depressive. It didn't come out of nowhere.
And then, wow. Was your dad still alive at that point?
He was, but they'd been divorced for a long time.
So did that? Of course, it rocked your world. But how do you get through something like that? How do you wrap your mind around that kind of exit?
The big challenge for me was to understand it and to be comfortable that I wouldn't do the same thing, because I had felt a deep affinity with my mom. And so one of my reactions was just fear that, oh my God, I'm a lot like my mom. Maybe I'll kill myself. So what happened was, and I didn't really realize that this at the time, I did sort of a deep dive in the field, and I got a master's in public health, and I worked at Columbia in the adolescent suicide prevention division. Right. And I did suicide prevention work for like eight years. And I really, in the process of understanding the field, it really helped me understand myself. I mean, for the same reason a lot of people go into mental health, into the profession, there's a lot of figuring yourself out in the process.
What did you learn about yourself?
That I'm like a lot different from my mother, and that's very glibly put, but there's a lot to that revelation, especially when a parent takes her life.
Speaking of horrible tragedies, you were married and divorced. I mean, did you learn something from that experience? Are you married again? Do you have a partner in your life? Where are you in that?
I'm single, and I've been single for 5 years. I had a 8-year partnership that ended 5 years ago, and it was great, but it reached its natural course.
So are you at the point where you will not get married? You'll date and you'll.
I think I'm definitely open to getting married.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, but pre-COVID, how is dating in New York these days? I mean, are you on apps? Do you actually meet people just out there in Manhattan? I mean, how do you go about meeting nice Jewish girls? Better be Jewish, nice Jewish girls.
If I were more, I should be on apps. It's not a top of mind thing, but if it were, I would be on apps. It's just the sort of thing that I'm open to, and if something occurs, great.
Well, I mean, if you were
now post-COVID, I don't know what is going to happen. I can't begin to imagine going about.
Can you point to things that happened in the marriage that you had that you would do over, that you would change, or was it more her? She was horrible. I know, or how would you do it differently?
Oh, Rabbi, it was just not a great idea. We were not right for each other, and I got married too soon in the wake of my mom's death, and so I didn't have a good sense of who I was and what I wanted. I was very confused at that point, and I felt like, gee, I'm almost 40. if I want to have kids, if I want to do this, I better get married. So I did.
So now let's roll it. By the way, we're talking with Ted Greenberg, who doesn't even know his own Jewish name. This is horrible, but otherwise, we're having a wonderful chat with this man who is really best known in New York circles for this show that he had been doing at the Soho Playhouse for year after year after year, once a week, called The Complete Performer. We're going to ramp to get to there. At the moment, we've left you leaving Wall Street. You probably made enough money in those 10 years that you can basically live frugally for the rest of your life, I hope. Is that...
Yeah, that was my thinking at the time. Yes, that was my thinking at the time, that I can coast for a really long time. Yeah.
And you've been, but so what did you do after that?
So then I went back to school. I went to Columbia and I worked full time and went to school full time.
Oh, so you were your job was suicide prevention. That was Okay, got it.
Yeah. And then when that sort of ran its course, and then in my early 40s now, I guess it's like early mid 40s. I saw an act, a prop comic, who blew me away. He's actually an LA prop comic.
I hate prop comics.
I know. I never liked them either until I saw this guy, and then I thought, oh my God, I'd love to produce that guy in New York City. And then 2 weeks later, I thought, no, you know what? I want to perform. I want to perform. And so I gave my job notice, and I left 6 months later, and I started doing stand-up. And then within like 3 months, I was on stage 5 times a night.
Opening for people. You wouldn't have suddenly been like a headliner in...
No. But in New York City, if you do your own show, you can swap spots. It's like if you... So I started a show in my neighborhood. And then I really dove into it, where I got on stage a lot.
Good.
And then I started doing The Complete Performer in 2008, and I never stopped. I mean, I really love doing it. It's a very fun show for me.
Now let me ask you. When we describe The Complete Performer, I mentioned that it's not quite just regular stand-up. Even when you were doing stand-up, how would you describe what you do?
There are jokes in it, and I mean there are like setup and punchline jokes, but I would consider the show more of a party, and that moves really fast. It's a form-busting 60-minute comedy show that moves really fast. There's magic in it, and it's rollicking and fast and surprising. Now it is offbeat, but to me it's almost a throwback to the sort of unusual shows I saw as a kid growing up in New York City. You know, where you'd walk into a space and not really know what you were getting into.
I mean, I think a lot of people might point to someone I think is kind of overrated, but Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a huge Kaufman fan. Kid. Yeah.
Kaufman, he broke the rules. He broke the barriers, and yet that's sort of sometimes an excuse for not being funny enough. It's like, oh, it's weird. It doesn't have to be funny. It's just.
I agree. I agree that he could be really hit or miss, and he had the benefit of this save his Elvis impersonation.
Right. Yeah.
So he could bomb at Catch a Rising Star and then just pull out his Elvis and
he pulls out his Elvis and probably should be arrested. But you know what I'm saying. I think you don't. But so, by the way, you have still, even though you've been doing Complete Performer, you wrote a play just a couple of years ago called Ace.
Yeah.
What's happening? Did anything? I think you did it off Broadway. Anything happening with that?
It had a 6-week run, and that's what it was meant to have.
Okay. What was it about? What was it?
It was about it was a solo show about a father-son relationship.
Autobiographical or?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's a little autobiographical.
But you're not playing you. It was you playing a character based on you.
It was very autobiographical, but it was me playing a character. I mean,
what was your relationship with your papa?
He was a very domineering character, and he was both domineering and extremely admirable and hilarious. You might appreciate this. He was extremely philanthropic and a Zionist.
Yes.
And in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, he donated the bathrooms, and there are urinals with plaques of his siblings' name above them. He felt bathrooms were really underrated in museums and was insistent. What is that? I'm having trouble reading that. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Wow, it's great how you can so conveniently pull that out.
Well, I do. I have an assistant, my darling, my lovely wife, Miriam Libby. We've been married we have 21 and a half beautiful children. Well, they're not all, some, there's inbreeding going on, but mostly they're kind of beautiful. But let me, do you have pictures? Did you actually go to Jerusalem and take pictures of the toilets with these plaques on them?
There are photos, yes. I'm not like you. I don't have them handy, and I don't have an assistant.
And this is a wonderful, fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. What do you think? Is your legacy going to be like saving some stupid kids from suicide, or is it going to be comedy? What do you think your legacy will be?
Oh, I don't know. I can't begin to think about legacy, Rabbi. I don't think it's my place to think about legacy.
Wow.
I hope my friends say nice things about me. That's my legacy.
I forgot to ask because actually Dave, the producer of this program, knew very tangentially, met a couple of times Larry Bud Millman, Calvert DeForest back in the day. Do you have any Calvert stories?
Wow. He was, I don't. He was sort of the darling of those two original writers who worked with him. I mean, the story. He was a hospital orderly.
Yeah. And he was trying also to be an actor. He was in some low budget stuff. And
he was a wannabe actor for sure.
Yeah. He actually played. This is absolutely. I don't know if you know. You probably know this, but yeah. He played the guy at the very end of A Streetcar Named Desire. He was in a production of the Tennessee Williams play where he plays a doctor who comes in to take Blanche off to the sanitarium.
Wow. And
she tells Larry Bud Meltwell, Calvert DeForest, I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. He gets that scene. Beyond comprehension, but he did that. True story. But what do you remember about Larry Bud?
Oh, I just remember him offering moist towelettes at the bus station and really thinking that he was doing a good deed, like it was a mitzvah. I mean, that's what pops in the mind.
He really was that person that you saw. That was the beautiful part of him.
I think that's true. I mean, and he did have this ambitious streak. It's not as though he wasn't.
Okay.
An ambitious guy, but yeah, that's my memory of him at Port Authority, offering towelettes and really thinking that he was doing a good thing.
But that wasn't your sketch. Your sketch was with him was
no. I think that was a Joe Toplin, Sandy Frank idea, and there was a point in the show where Dave was getting a little irritated because he thought writers were leaning too heavily on Larry Bud, but it was so hard not to. I mean, he was there.
He was beautiful. It was a magnificent thing. If you've got a Rodin sculpture in the garden, you don't go poking around looking for a little Joe Moreau drawing. It's like, oh, let's look at this, But
yeah, he was a Rodin for sure.
Well, he was molded at that point. It was,
Yeah.
it had 2 chips in it, and then they left it, and it's like, let's just leave the lump. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful as it. Let me ask you, do you ever get together with those original writer folks?
The people I stay in touch with, I mean, I know Max Pross really well. I'm friendly with him and his family, and his partner Tom Gamble I'm in touch with from time to time. Chris
Elliott?
Yeah, Chris Elliott I'm not in touch with, but he was writing for the show at that time as well, as was Matt Wickline, and Steve O'Donnell I bump into from time to time. But the person I'm most in touch, I mean, I talk to Yaz once a week because I'm in a card game with him, and Max Pross I talk to a lot.
So speaking of, you're in a card game with him and all,
Yeah.
how have you been, I haven't even asked this, how have you been handling COVID? You're in New York somewhere, like in Chelsea or something like that.
Yeah, I'm in the West Village, and it's a great place to be. There's a park nearby. I get out every day. I mean, it hasn't really changed my life that much.
Oh, good. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so you get out with a mask and you walk around and you do your shopping.
Yeah.
But you get together for cards with your friends, or do you?
No, I mean, there's a card game on Zoom, which is not, like wearing a condom. It's not great.
It's not. I'm wearing one now. It's quite unpleasant. I'm wearing it for a week. The same. I should probably change that out. I want to know what goyim feel when they have smegma. So this is why I'm trying to this may be the only interview anyone has ever done where smegma has been mentioned twice in the same interview for no particular reason. I'm very proud of that. And so
what was that you brandished? Does it have an iced coffee? What is that?
No, you're Jewish. What do you think this is? What do you think my darling wife Miriam Libby made for me?
What hour of the day is this for you? Fill me in.
Well, I'm in Great Neck, New York.
Oh, you're on the East Coast?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. We should get together for drinks. Notice the seltzer being poured into the glass.
Yeah.
With the chocolate and the milk, which makes it an...
Wow. Is that like an old-fashioned egg? Yeah, that's fantastic.
Boy, you're only called... You know what's called egg cream? It's
Yeah,
egg cream, goddammit. Oh,
yeah. Wow. Good for you.
Look at the foam. Look at the fizz.
Yeah.
And all the stirring and the chemical reactions going on in there. Oh, it's beautiful.
You do that from home. Good for you.
Oh, absolutely. What? I'm Jewish. I'm not going to pay $3 for a little spritz of seltzer and some milk. What, are you crazy? I wasn't on Wall Street for 10 years. My God. I started my school at a gas station, for crying out loud.
It's not easy to get an egg cream on the West Village. I would have to do that myself.
Well, get a spritz of seltzer, a little either Fox's You Bet, which is very nice.
Yes.
Getting Nesquik is good. And then, and then what you do, everybody knows the secret to the egg cream, is you try it in different combinations, and you get it about half, and then you drink it all the way down, and you have to make another one immediately. You can't just make an egg cream. You have to sample it, and when you sample it, you drink half of it all right there. And then you have to make more. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful thing. Speaking of beautiful things, this is the one moment when I'm actually staring at my notes. You were you went to Harvard in your initial thing. We didn't even talk about this. You were a Harvard guy, yeah?
Yeah.
And you wrote for the Harvard Lampoon. Do you remember what you're most proud, your favorite thing that you wrote to the Lampoon, whether it was published or not?
Well, like the splashiest thing I did was when Yazbek and I were in high school, we made Charlie Manson trading cards, and then the Lampoon format really lent itself to these trading cards because I remember this was like a $5,000 project where the cards were perforated in the Lampoon publication where you could punch them out. So it was really amazing at age 20 to have like that sort of deployment of capital to make a comedy idea, like Charlie Manson trading cards.
I mean,
So
it's
that's
just
what,
like you write a joke, the joke is told. It's like, oh, here's a joke idea. Let's spend $5,000 to make it literally happen in a magazine. Yeah.
it was incredible. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was when the Lampoon was still getting money from the National Lampoon, so they could afford it.
I mean, Harvard Lampoon was still getting money from
Yeah,
them.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, do you think Harvard helped you on your way? I mean, you know, if you've gone to another college, do you think you would have had the breaks that you had?
I doubt it. I mean, had I not gone to Harvard, I wouldn't have known when to submit material to Letterman. Like I wouldn't have been notified. So the short answer to your question is, yeah, probably not. It was a huge.
Yes. Are you working on another? Because right now, obviously, you're not performing.
Yeah.
Each performer. What are you working on, if anything? Or are you just kind of cruising?
Yeah, I'm working on another solo show, another live solo show, which is, I guess, the stupidest thing in the world. It's just like who knows when there'll be another venue for me to do.
Well, no, the small theaters in 2021, they'll be opened up. You know, the Soho Playhouse will be.
I think you're right. Yeah, in some form. It's just hard to imagine that there won't be social distancing in indoor spaces for a long time. And you know, and the theater, I think it'll take a bunch of months for the theater to figure out how it's supposed to deal with this. I mean, for the show I'm doing now, we've kicked around ideas to do it outdoors. And if I had to do a show on June 6th, I would do it outdoors, and I would get a bunch of cab drivers to show up and seat people in the backs of cabs. And so the cabs would be like in a flower petal design, and I'd be in the middle of the street doing my show mic'd, and there'd be amplifiers in all the vehicles. So it would be like a drive-in show.
But your budget, how the hell would you manage that?
I would blow the money for one show, just to do it. Yeah. Because I'm really itching to perform, and I'd also like to figure out a way to break through the morass of non-performance. And if it, you know, if it cost a couple of grand or $4 or $5 grand, I would do it.
But there's also, I mean, what about, and it's funny, when the COVID thing first started and the shoving in first started, people were like, oh God, there's no live shows, there's no concerts, there's no theater. And then it's like a trickle came through of people doing all their shows and readings and even performances on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh God damn it, not another Zoom show.
I know, that stuff really leaves me cold. And I'd like to figure out a way around that. And so it's still possible that on June 6th, I do this goofy outdoor show, and the audience is in the back of 10 or 12 cabs in front of the Soho Playhouse, and the street is closed off.
Now you must, if you still own a cab, you must still have a hack license, but you weren't driving, you haven't worked.
Yeah, no, I get a cab from another driver to do the show, but yes, I've maintained a hack license, and now I don't even have to anymore, because the Taxi Limousine Commission rules have been so liberal that I think anybody can drive a cab if it's off duty. You just can't like get there.
Yeah, and also I've got like $7 in my wallet. Can I buy your medallion?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you would have to pool with 3 or 4 other rabbis to make like $28, and then I think you could pull it off.
I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been practicing driving the mitzvah van, and you don't need anything for that. You can be a 12-year-old. Don't put you on that. You just go right down the West Side Highway. We are finishing our wonderful chat here with Ted Greenberg. I've got 1 or 2 more quick questions for you, but before we do, we want to make sure that if you do a show on June 6th or maybe July 6th or whenever,
right.
How can people find out about it? You've got a website. Is it Ted Greenberg?
TheCompletePerformer.com is the easiest way. thecompleteperformer.com.
With thecompleteperformer.com. This gives a background on you and also.
Yeah, it tells the whole story. Yeah, and the great thing about the show, and your audience should know this, that every show does end with a cab ride home for an audience member.
It's very cool. In fact,
With me at the wheel.
Dave was wondering, because Dave went to your show many years ago, and he was there a good time, and he actually got picked to be the cab guy. Was it? Do you sometimes, because he was wondering, because he's a theater critic and he is not exactly a VIP under any circumstances, but was it a fair thing or was it literally?
Oh, it's completely on the level. It's the heart and soul of the show. I've gone deep into Queens, deep into Brooklyn. I mean, sometimes it adds 3 hours to my night. It is completely on the level.
Oh no, it felt on the level. We was just kind of wondering. He felt like, oh my God, was he intentionally picked, or was it completely random in the hat?
It was completely random. However, if I ever did try to fix it, I would fix it in his favor. However, it was completely random.
Do you drive to Borough Park?
Sure, happily.
Oh, there we go. This was good. This was good. Well,
especially if there's an egg cream at the end of the drive.
That's a deal. That is a deal. And he makes his with motor oil, so that really gives a good strong kick. Last question for Ted Greenberg. Are there any particular truisms for you in comedy? Are there any things that you're like, I can rely on this, or this is something we should all know about comedy?
The thing I think everybody should learn from Meryl Marco is that when you're a TV writer, write format more than jokes. I mean, her thing was that if you can come up with formats or rotatables, ideas that can be used again and again, you can get enormous mileage out of your efforts. That was a huge lesson for me when I was 23 years old.
Wow. I guess, like, if only I could come up with something like dynamite, that would,
Yeah, or like running over things with a steamroller, or
yes.
She was really, really smart about that.
You are really, really smart to be doing what you do, to have a wonderful life that you've had and are continuing to have. First of all, I wish you hunkering down and writing that new solo piece of yours. And I certainly wish that within the next few weeks, we get to see the complete performer again, whether it's outside somewhere or near the Soho Playhouse, or once again in the Soho Playhouse, or wherever you want to do it. Ted Greenberg, much health, much good luck, much continued success, and shalom to you.
Shalom to you. I love this. Thank you.
Bye-bye now. All right. This always gets weird here when I have to let you go, so I can.
Okay, I go. Bye-bye.
Shalom. Oh, look at the light, ladies and gentlemen. Ted Greenberg on the Dave's Gone By program.